Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and you guys will be familiar with this car. This is my and my wife's 2023 Honda CRV Sport Touring Hybrid. And it'll be familiar to you guys because we've had it now for this is supposed to be a 6-month update video, but it's like 7 or 8 months. So sorry about that. The summer is just incredibly busy for me here on the channel. So it's been about 7.5, 8-ish months with the CRV, and we've been all over this thing's competitors, from the CX-50 hybrid, the RAV4 hybrid, the Sportage hybrid, the Forester hybrid, and all those things. So we've got a lot of context to talk about how this thing is, what it's been like to live with for the past 6 months, and everything in between. Let's get into it. The time has flown, but yes, we have had this car since December of 2024, and now I'm filming this in about mid-August of 2025. We've had it for about 8 months, and in that span of time, we've covered about 9,000 miles. We're up to 25,000 miles on the clock here, and it's done everything that we could have asked of it. It's been on the track, it's hauled rocks for landscaping, it's taken me to shoots, and it's done all of that without skipping a beat, at least so far. But the first thing I want to cover right away is some of the modifications that we've made to this car over the first 8 months of ownership. Now, the first thing that we did right away. I reached out to my friends at Kumo and I asked if I could get some all-weather tires. We bought this thing in December, get a lot of snow here in Wisconsin, so it was nice to have a little bit of added traction with the Solus HA32 all-weather tires. And they've performed beautifully. They performed really, really well in the snow. We actually got the tires put on during a day when it was snowing, so driving my car to the dealership to have the tire swap done, I definitely got some feedback from how the car responded in the snow, and then as we were going home after the switch had been made, especially coming into a corner, it felt a lot more confident, that is for sure. It's a softer compound, but you can leave it on all year round. And this is one of the things that I like about this tire. It's not like a fully dedicated winter tire that you have to swap in and swap out. So you don't need to buy an extra set of wheels. You don't have to pay to get the wheels swapped or do it yourself and don't have to worry about that. You can just leave these tires on all season long and have some additional traction in the wintertime when it's really important. It does, I think, maybe eat into fuel economy a tiny bit, maybe 1 mpg overall. But to be honest, I really haven't seen that much of a difference, if at all. If there is a difference, it's negligible at most with these tires. The other thing, noise, vibration on the road, nearly invisible. Like going from the OE tire to this tire, I've had no adverse side effects and I've had a lot of positives. So I am very, very happy with the Kumo Solus HA32 all-weather tires that I've got on our CRV here. We also did do another modification. This one's not quite as dramatic as new tires, but we did get some Husky floor liners from our friends at Real Truck, and they have been beautiful. One of the things that my wife complained about as we first got going with our ownership of this CRV is that the trunk liner, in at least the OE spec trunk liner that came with the car, slid around a lot. Now, she's a bowler. She was actually like an NCAA bowler, which I didn't know was a thing until we met, but it is. And so when she's moving her equipment, she's got 3 balls in this bag, plus all of her extra, paraphernalia. So it's 45, let's say 50 pounds worth of stuff that she's hoisting into the trunk and then pulling out. It's got wheels, but even that OE liner with the wheels on the bag kind of would like slide out of the car when she would take her stuff out to go into the lanes. And of course, when it's sloppy and slushy and gross, you don't want your liner coming out. You want it protecting your trunk floor. So the Husky liner that we have now actually fits in perfectly. It gives a little bit more protection coming upwards on the outer perimeter. So we've got a little bit more snow and water protection for the trunk, and it doesn't move around in the trunk. We've also got new liners on the front seats. And again, these Husky liners, they come up a little bit more on the sides, so it definitely gives a little bit more protection, which of course is nice, especially in those sloppier months in the winter and in the spring when it's raining a lot. So I've really enjoyed having those. They fit just as well, if not better, as OE, and they certainly offer more protection. We also tested it out with a little bit more durability test when we went to go pick up a bunch of land and stone and put it in the trunk of the CRV. Nothing punctured, nothing ripped, nothing scraped. You just kind of hose it down and it's all clean and good to go. So I've really been happy with the tires and the floor liners that we've put on here. There's a couple more things that I wish we would do. The horn here is really, really puny. It's almost like embarrassing to the point where I don't want to honk the horn at people, but sometimes you just gotta let somebody know. But it is a little bit embarrassing when you honk the horn and it's like, meep, meep. So I would like to swap out a more beefy horn, I think. But other than that, I've been pretty happy with what the car is. I don't feel like I need to make a lot more modifications to it. So then I think that's a good way to transition into how I feel about the car generally. And I think I'm 90% in love with this car. There's a 10% that we've talked about in basically every video that we've done with this car up until now. But everything aside from the conditionality of the fuel economy has been splendid. It looks great. The trunk is enormous. The back seat is huge. It rides incredibly well. It's really, really smooth. This Honda 2-motor powertrain system with the hybrid is wonderfully smooth. You know, I make this comparison, I made it in another video, I can't remember what it was, but I compared the smoothness of the gas engine kicking in and then cutting out with this hybrid system. It's just as smooth as an S63 AMG from Mercedes. So like a $250,000, that seems a bit much, but a $200,000 car. And this Honda is just as smooth and refined, at least from a powertrain perspective. Now, obviously it's down on power from an AMG, but still, you kind of get what I'm saying. Really, really impressed with the driving character of this car. Again, we've been all over this entire segment, most recently in the Forester hybrid, but also the CX-50 hybrid. And then I have a RAV4 hybrid that I've owned since January of 2025 here. And what else did we drive? I had to go in a Tucson hybrid last year. And like, we've been all over this segment. And still, I maintain that this drives and handles the most sophisticated, the most comfortably, and the transition with the hybrid and the CVT is the most seamless and the most refined. This is the closest to a luxury experience in this hybrid class, bar none. But like I did mention, I do want to talk about fuel economy a little bit more now. Now, I ragged on this thing pretty hard when we first got it because it was in the winter months. And the nature of this 2-motor hybrid system, and I'm going to bastardize this a little bit for the sake of just easy to explain-ness, but you can kind of think of this almost as an EV, but instead of being fed by a huge battery, it's fed by this gas generator that lives under the hood here, your 2-liter engine. So it is charging your battery, which is like a kilowatt hour or thereabouts, and then it's sending power to electric motors. Now you do have clutches and all-wheel drive stuff with mechanical connections and things like that. So again, this is an oversimplification, but we also know in our testing that EVs are incredibly susceptible to cold and of course wind. And this seems to kind of fall in line with that a little bit. When we first got this car in December of 24 and then all through the winter months here in Wisconsin, it was a little disappointing how this thing performed in the cold months. My wife will take this thing up to her work. She works about, when she goes into the studio, it's about 100 miles a day. I think I've mentioned this on a number of videos, but it's all open highway through like rural towns. So you're doing 75, you're locked in on the cruise. And she was getting like low to mid 20s. And like, this was our first long-term experience with the car, so I was kind of furious because I was like, okay, we had your CX-5 from Mazda that was just NA 2.5 4-cylinder engine, and it was averaging like 27, over 28 mpg for its lifetime. And then we get this hybrid thinking, oh, we're gonna save all this fuel with you going up to work all the time and putting all these miles on. And it was worse than the Mazda. So I was really kind of pissed. Of course, we were gonna see it through. And then as the summer months and the spring months started to come and the temperature started to warm up, the fuel economy has certainly improved. We redid our Lakeshore Loop fuel economy test. The first time we did it, we got about like a 36.3. That was in like December, January, so cold weather conditions. We redid it now, and I forget what it was, hold on. And we got about 44 mpg, which is a huge, huge 8 mpg delta. So this is kind of the point that I'm illustrating is the fuel economy here on this hybrid is very susceptible and conditional to the ambient temperature outside of where you're driving. So in warmer, more temperate climates, you're gonna get great fuel economy. In colder climates, you will struggle a little bit. Go away, shoo fly. Shoo, shoo. It's also worth noting that the fuel economy is certainly worse at higher speeds. I think this is somewhat of a product of the all-wheel drive system. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of the detail, but basically at highway speeds, it's simulating like a 6th gear. So it's just not quite as efficient with the all-wheel drive system. I think maybe if you had a front-wheel drive CRV, it'd be a little bit better. My parents have a Honda Accord hybrid, and driving up to our cabin this past weekend, it's 120, 125 miles from Milwaukee up to the cabin, and my mom got like 48 mpg on the way up, so maybe it's just the all-wheel drive system. I'm sure the upright, boxy nature of the CRV being less aerodynamic, sure, that counts for a few, but not that big of a difference. So I'm thinking that the all-wheel drive system has something to do with it. So that's kind of my rant about fuel economy. It's just a little conditional based on the temperatures, whereas something like my RAV4 hybrid, the Mazda CX-50 hybrid, which is the same as my RAV4 hybrid, that system anyway, and then the Tucson, the Sportage, and some of the others, the Forester as well, are going to be less conditional on ambient temperatures for their fuel economy. So just something to note. When you are driving this thing around town though, it is beautiful. I mean, it drives great, super refined, and then you also get low 40s, sometimes even in the mid 40 MPG, depending on how far you're going and what your route looks like. But just something to be aware of. And then the only other thing that I'm kind of going to ding the car on, we've talked about this since 2023, since the car came out, it's just the tech and some of the features that you are missing here makes it less competitive than something like a RAV4 or a Tucson. You're missing a panoramic roof, you're missing like a head-up display. Personally, I don't need it, but like a 360 camera I would love to have. We were just in the 2026 updated or facelifted CRV, and it's still missing a pano roof, it's still missing heated rear seats, it's still missing a digital rear view mirror, it's still missing a 360 camera. So, I mean, these are small things, but I would like a cooled seat. I would like a 360 camera, pano roof. I guess I could take or leave, but it's just some of the other competitors are bringing some of this stuff. But again, with our ownership, my wife hasn't complained about it. These are small things, but just something, if those are going to be make or breaks for you, to know that those options are available in some of the other rivals. But with some of those pros and cons covered, I do want to talk about some of the experiences that we had with this car. Now, like I mentioned, we've done a lot of stuff. We put 9,000 miles on this thing. And one of the experiences that stuck out to me was the on-track experience. Now, thankfully, I have a great relationship with our home track, Road America. It's like 40 minutes from my house. And they were nice enough to let me use their autocross track to kind of shake down cars. So one day after the other, actually, it might have been the same day, I don't remember exactly, but I took the CRV hybrid and my RAV4 hybrid up to the autocross track, so similar conditions, and I got lap times. And the lap times don't indicate that this is the better car on track. This is slower, but I can tell you exactly why it's slower. It's just down on power. Now, the RAV4 hybrid has like 219 horsepower. It's got a 2.5 liter engine, CVT, all-wheel drive. This is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with the hybrid system, blah, blah, blah. It's just down on power. This is like 204 versus 219, and you can just feel it on the home straight. Now, it's not a huge, big power track. It's small, tight, twisty, and this certainly handles better. The steering feels more organic. The braking feels more organic and more natural and more progressive. This was much better to drive on track. I think I mentioned during our track video, like, if I were to come back with either of these cars, I would come back with the CRV even though it's slower because it's just better to drive. The RAV4 felt really stabby, really peaky. I got into much more of a flow behind the wheel of the CRV, which sounds like a funny thing to say. I got into a flow on a racetrack with the Honda CRV hybrid. But you kind of get the point that I'm illustrating, right? It's just, this was certainly better to drive, albeit being a little bit slower. Now, I did have the thought, like, I also could take this on the off-road course at Road America. There wasn't a huge response to the track video with this, so I guess I'll leave it down to you guys. If you want to see me off-road this thing, leave it down in the comments, because it is a risk. Things could happen off-road, and I'm not going to take that risk if no one's going to watch the video, right? So leave it down in the comments if you want to see that happen. The rest of it has been pretty normal dailying experiences, and like I said, I'm like a broken record here. The driving experience is really great, especially around town, shorter trips, especially when the weather is warmer, that it throws itself into EV mode a lot more, and then it's just really, really refined. One thing that is kind of annoying is the hybrid howl, especially in reverse, is like deafening. It's so loud. I mean, it's a sound that's like legally mandated, right, for hybrids and EVs, and there's like jokes and memes on the internet about like you're being, you know, it's like the apocalypse and you're being summoned up or whatever. But it is certainly loud in this CRV. So that's maybe one little tiny thing, but it's neither here nor there. It's just a marginal thing. But then I think maybe we should talk about like durability and reliability. Now, durability, again, we've put 9,000 miles on this thing in the span of 8 months, so you know there's a lot of miles that go on this thing. And everything has been fine. Like nothing has broken, nothing has rattled loose, the interior's holding up, the steering wheel leather looks great, the side bolster on the driver's seat where you're scooching in and out still looks great. It's fine. Like, there's no problem, and this is something that we talk about, especially as we've done our reviews throughout the rest of the segment, is the interior here on this CRV feels a little bit higher quality than something you would get in a Tucson or a Sportage. Those might have a little bit more pomp and flair and ambient light and like try to dazzle you a little bit more, but this just feels like a more solid quality item. It also feels a lot more solid and better materials than in my RAV4. Now granted, there's a new RAV4 coming out, but at least compared to this certainly feels, and kind of the Mazda, at the top of the segment. Even the Subaru Forester that we were in last week felt really pretty high end, but I think this is certainly in the top 3, if not the top 2, or maybe even the best in terms of interior quality, and it's held up well over these first 25,000 miles. And then in terms of reliability, mechanically anyway, nothing has gone wrong. It's just standard scheduled maintenance. I did pay $230 to have the tires installed on the same factory rims, so it's an elective thing that you don't have to incur that cost. The tires didn't need to be replaced at 20,000 miles or whenever I did them. I just wanted to put the Kumos on. So $230 there, and then we did have one service. We've had one service during our 9,000 miles, and it was a B17 service. So it was about $333. We rotated the tires, we did a brake service with fluids, and we did an oil change. So all of that is to say, this has been really reliable, especially when you consider the fact that, as you guys know that follow the channel, I've had a RAV4 hybrid, and that has not been as reliable. That had to go into the shop to get like a whole front radar array sensor thing replaced. Now granted, it was under warranty, but like my radar cruise didn't work. And more annoyingly, it doesn't have it wouldn't function as like a standard cruise control. So I'm on the highway for hours at a time just with my foot here trying to maintain throttle and speed, and then I'm getting pain in my leg. So this has been a lot more reliable. I shouldn't say a lot more, but it hasn't had any single thing go wrong with it, nothing to affect drivability. And it's been pretty great. So I think this is kind of where we wrap up the video then. It's been a pretty enjoyable first 8 months of ownership with the CRV. There's the one little thing about, some of the features that are missing versus competitors, and the other thing about the fuel economy not being so great in the winter. So the question becomes, will we keep this car? And I think under normal conditions, so the thing is, my wife wants a Maverick. She's wanted one for a long time now. I kind of talked her into getting this because, I can use it for the channel, and it's still a good car, and it was supposed to be more efficient going up to work and back. But she's always kind of wanted a Maverick. So now that the Maverick comes with all-wheel drive and a hybrid, I think we'll probably get one of those for her next year. But it's not a reflection on the CRV. The CRV is still a very solid car. It's still a very solid option. Just make sure you know what you're getting into in terms of how important fuel economy is to you. But it's been very reliable, it looks great, it drives incredibly spacious, incredibly practical. It's just, if you live in colder climates and you do a lot of expansive rural highway 75 mile an hour plus in the winter, that will affect your fuel economy. But other than that, it's been a great car. So I hope this has been helpful. We'll check back in at 12 months or a year before my wife gets her Maverick, and we'll see how the car is doing then. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.